Welcome back to DocTrack Administrator Training. For this lesson, we're going to complete our look at the DocTrack polling request utility. Specifically, we're going to use it to identify and fix some common problems that you can run into with DocTrack polling. In our last lesson, we reviewed the DocTrack polling process and looked at the fields that make up the form. Finally, we printed a range of POs and noticed that nothing seemed to be happening. You can see in this field that there are no reports ready for processing. As we learned in the last lesson, processing won't start until the Infor Framework Taskman service generates the initial purchase order PDF, and all of the attachments have been converted to PDFs as well. We can narrow down the problem by looking for the color blue. And it's clear that all 4 requests are waiting for the Taskman service. So we know the first place to look. Let's log into the server where DocTrack polling is installed. I'm going to right-click the taskbar and start the Task Manager. I'll select the Services tab and sort on the description. Then I'll scroll down to find Infor Framework Taskman. And just as I suspected, it stopped. There are many ways that this can happen, either knowingly or unknowingly. The important thing to remember is that this is probably the first thing you want to check when your polling requests seem to be stuck waiting for Taskman. And the best thing is that it's really easy to fix. Just right-click it and select Start Service. And it's running again. Now, let's go back to our polling request utility. Since we've restarted the Taskman service, I can see that the checks are removed from the Waiting for Taskman column, which tells me that all 4 of the initial PDF reports are complete. But as I continue to refresh this form, it appears to be stuck again. So, when in doubt, look for blue. And in this case, the column labeled Ready Attachment Count is highlighted. None of them are ready, even after repeatedly refreshing the screen. It looks like something else is wrong. Well, remember, besides waiting for the initial PDF file to be created, processing is also going to wait until all of the attachments are converted to PDFs. And I think I know what's holding it up. Let's go back to the server and make sure that DocTrack polling is running. Okay, we're back at the server. I'm going to look at the Task Manager again, but this time I'll select the Details tab. Now I'll see if I can find DocTrack Polling EXE. Well, there's the problem. Polling isn't even running. Okay, let's start it up. Now, you may be tempted to just go to the Start button, look for DocTrack polling, and run it from here. But be careful. In most companies, polling is actually controlled by a scheduled task. This way, it will start automatically when the server started and run in the background. I want to see if that's how it's set up here. So I'm going to select Start and Task Scheduler. Next, I'll highlight Task Scheduler Library. And look at this. Here's a task called DocTrack Polling. And under Triggers, I see that it's set to run at System Startup. This is typically how you'd see it if your company has set up the task for DocTrack to run in the background. For some reason, it just stopped. Well, it couldn't be easier to restart it. Over on the right, I just click Run. Now, if I go back to the Task Manager, I can see DocTrack Polling EXE is running just like it's supposed to. Okay, we took care of that. Now let's go to our utility again. Back at the utility now, and the status has changed again. At first glance, it might appear to be finished because the grid below is empty. However, this record is still here, telling me that the request isn't complete. Just to make sure, I'll refresh it a few times, but it remains the same. Again, when in doubt, look for blue. And you see some blue over here in the table on the left. Each of these records in this collection is a separate batch request. And here's our missing request. It's been moved to a batch request with an ID of nothing but zeros. That tells me that somehow the batch ID field in the header table was removed, and now the value in that field is null. This is something that can happen if polling is accidentally shut down at some point after you submit the batch request. Also, in rare cases, this can happen if there's a conflict with our code and Sightline. If this kind of problem comes up more than once, it's a good idea to let us know by dropping us a note at support@lakecode.com. Fortunately, this is also easy to fix. Just check the select box and then reset. Immediately, it's resubmitted with a fresh batch ID, and it goes through just fine. Once you get to know this tool, you can easily fix a lot of typical DocTrack problems yourself. That's the DocTrack Polling Request utility. And that's all for now.